Hi everybody. In today's video, I want to talk to you about one of my favorite visas, E2 Investor Visa. This visa gives you a great opportunity to invest in the United States, be a boss in your own company, or bring your key employees to your own company and basically do business, employ people, and contribute to the US economy. The bottom line of the E2 visa is that you're going to make money, you're going to gain, and at the same time, there will be economic growth in the US workforce. So I'll explain you what is required for the E2 visa, who can apply for it, and what you need to do to get the E2 cases approved. For you to be able to apply for an E2 visa, there has to be a treaty between the United States and the country of your nationality. For example, Germany has one. For example, Italy has one. For example, Japan has one. These treaty countries require that foreign national invest in the United States and spend some of that money and create an economically viable entity and employ US workers so that they can get the E2 visa. I will get down to the requirements of the E2 visa one by one now. So the first requirement is there must be a treaty between the foreign country and the US. Not all the countries have it. This is a very long list, but I'll put some of the names of the countries that has a treaty with the United States in the description section and at the same time at the screen. The second requirement is if you're applying for an E2 visa, you have to have the nationality of the country that has the treaty with the United States. What do I mean by that? If you're filing for yourself, obviously you are the national of that country. But let's say you are an owner of a company, you don't want to get your E2 by yourself, you want to get an employee of your company an E2 visa. For that to happen, that employee must be of the same nationality as you. If you're an Italian, that guy, that employee that you want to bring to the United States must be an Italian. If you're an Italian, you cannot bring a French employee by the E2 visa. That's what they mean by that. The treaty country must have the same nationality with the E2 visa applicant. The third requirement is that the applicant must have invested in the US enterprise or must be actively investing in the United States enterprise. For every E2 application, we either set up a company or we purchase an existing US business, and then there must be an investment into the US company. This could be the initial investment money from the applicant to the US company, or if you're buying a business, this could be the purchase price of the business. Basically, there must be a substantial amount of investment. The law doesn't say what the substantial amount is. Is it 100,000? Is it 150,000? Is it $1 million? The law is silent about that. The only reason the law is silent about that is because it changes by the industry, by the business that you're going to invest in. If you're basically buying a pizza store, maybe $50,000 to $100,000 would be sufficient. If you're establishing a factory where you're going to manufacture cars, maybe you need $10 million. So it depends on the business. We also have to point out that there's some kind of a psychological barrier or psychological minimum limit to this. Anything below $150,000 might be considered not substantial at the US consulates. So if you're going to apply from a US consulate for the E2 visa, try to keep the minimum investment level at $100,000 or $150,000. E2 visas can also be applied for within the US as a change of status. That doesn't give you a visa in your passport, but you can change your status within the US to an E2 status. In those applications, the investment amount can be significantly lower. I've gotten a lot of cases approved with $50,000 investments within the US. But of course, if you would like to go to a consulate and get an E2 visa stamped in your passport, $50,000 would probably not be sufficient. The fourth requirement for an E2 visa is that the entity must be operational. Whatever business you invested in, if you started it on your own or if you purchased it from somebody else, the operation must be active. What do you mean by that? The easiest definition of this would be, let's say, a pizza store. If you're making pizza, if you're selling pizza, you are in operation. If you have not yet opened the store, if you're doing the renovation, you are not yet active. The business must be active for you to be able to file for an E2 visa. One of the top 5 questions I get from my clients is that how can an entity be operational? How can a business be operational when I don't have the E2 visa? I can do those things with a tourist visa. Well, the thing is, there's some things you can do and you cannot do with the tourist visa. For example, you can establish a company, you can hire employees, you can rent a space, but you cannot work for that company. So basically what the E2 requirement is saying is that get everything together, get the management, get the employees, start the company running and working, and then apply for an E2 visa. Because up until that point, you don't have to violate your status. You do not have to do anything to violate your status. Once I give you the E2 visa or status approval, then you can start working for your company. You can be behind the counter, you can talk to your clients, you can do all the marketing campaigns. So things you have to do to set up the company and to run the company is mostly permissible with the B2 tourist visa. If you want to work for the company, that's where they draw the line. That's where you need the E2 visa. There were instances where the space was rented, but it was not operational, and you applied for an E2 visa, and the consulate would say, why don't you open up the restaurant and come back? I'm going with this restaurant example because it just fits into the situation, but it doesn't have to be a restaurant. It can be anything. The entity, the company, the business must be operational. If it's not operational, you will not be able to get the E2 visa. The 5th requirement of the E2 visa is that the investment must be substantial. I've touched upon what substantial means previously, but let me explain you about the source of investment here. So the 5th requirement is the investment must be substantial, and you have to be able to show the source of this investment. Now, the source of investment is a technical term in the E2 visa application, and it is very important. What that means is basically the US wants to know the source of your money. If this money is sourced from a criminal activity, or if this money is sourced from an activity that you did not pay your taxes for, then basically United States is not interested in your investment money. It's that simple. I've seen cases where the E2 was denied for $3 or $4 million investments because the applicant was not able to explain the source of the money. Let's say you are a business person, you're running businesses in your own country, or you are a white-collar worker, you made a lot of money throughout the years and you can show it in your bank account. You and your spouse were working, and then you bought houses and then cars, and then you decided to sell them to invest into the United States. So these are the things that you can show in your history by your bank statements, by your deeds, by your titles, that you own these properties or monies, and now you decided to invest in the United States, and basically you are using these sources to invest your money. Those are the sources that are being used the most for investing in the E2 enterprise. But of course, the source is not limited. It could also be a gift from a family member, as long as that family member can also show where that money is coming from. One of the things that people don't realize in doing E2 visas is that they think that if the money is in their bank account, that's sufficient. That's actually not sufficient. That's where the money is. It doesn't show you. It doesn't necessarily mean that that money belongs to you. So you have to show where that money came from. That's called the source of investment. Afterwards, after you show the source of investment, you transfer this money to the US company. That's called the path of the investment, and you also have to be able to show that. The 6th requirement of the E2 visa is that the investment is not marginal. What does this mean? It means that if the investment will result in employment opportunities only for the investor and his immediate family, then this is not considered a sufficient investment. The investment must be providing work opportunities, employment opportunities for US citizens and green card holders. That's the bottom line of the E2 visa actually. The US government is giving you this visa for you to be able to create employment opportunities. It is important because in the initial E2 applications, even sometimes in the extension E2 applications, we see that the company is not that profitable, but they employ a sizable amount of employees, 2, 3, 4, 5 employees. The US government is granting those E2s, the US government is extending those E2s, not because the company is paying a lot of taxes to the US government, but basically they are actually employing US employees and they are contributing to the economy. So that's the bottom line of the E2 visa. You need to employ US employees or green card holders, but there is no minimum number of US employees or green card holders that you need to employ. The seventh requirement of the E2 visa is that the applicant must develop and direct the enterprise. This is for the E2 investor. So if you are applying for an E2 visa, but you're saying that I'm just applying for the E2, I'm going to be the investor, I'm not going to deal with the company. I have professional managers to do that. I will not be involved at all at this company. I'm not even going to live where the company is. So this is not how you get the E2 visa, because just investing money into this company doesn't give you the right to apply for an E2 visa. You have to show that you are required for this company to operate and grow. That's where the develop and direct comes into play. So there may be instances where you have a professional management and they do most of the work, but you still have to supervise them. You still have to make sure you are the mission and vision person. So therefore, a scenario where you're not involved at all with the E2 business is not going to give you the E2 visa. The eighth requirement of the E2 visa is that if you are applying for a managerial level employee, then this person, the eighth requirement deals with the employee applicants. As I said before, E2 visa is not only for the company owner, partner, etc. It's also for the employee. And this employee doesn't necessarily have to work for your foreign company before. It could be anybody that you like and you think that they are going to be able to do this job. These employees can either be managerial or essential employees. Managerial employees manage businesses, people, any essential part of the business. Essential employees are a little more tricky because you have to show that you need this essential employee to run your business. Not necessarily a managerial employee, but an essential employee. So what are some of the factors the government looks at while determining whether this employee is essential? Employee's degree or proven experience in the field, for example. The uniqueness of his or her specific skills to perform that job. The salary of the essential employee. What kind of a salary is he or she going to make? Also, the short or long term of period you need this employee for, and whether there's any US workers who can perform this job. It's important to note that for essential employees, you need to show that there is no US workers that can do this job, and only this person can perform this job, and it is for a foreseeable period. The ninth and the final requirement for the E2 visa is that the applicant intends to depart the US at the end of his or her visa term. Now this is important. It's open to misinterpretation. What does this mean? It means that the E2 visa is subject to 214B. So what does this mean? It means that the applicant for an E2 visa is coming to the United States for business purposes. As long as the business runs, that person is here. If the business fails, if the business is not performing good, if he or she decides not to do this business anymore, then he or she is going to leave. This is the important part. So what does this mean really? It means that because this is a non-immigrant visa, you can only perform within the boundaries of this non-immigrant visa. You are being issued the E2 visa to come to the United States to run a business or work for a business. So you are bound by those terms. And at the end of this term, you are willing to go back to your own country. Now, your intentions may change in the future, but while applying for this visa, your intention must be that you are intending to return to your home country after your E2 expires or after the business ceases to exist. Like I said, E2 is one of my favorite visas. I know this is a long video, but I just wanted to give you the foundations of the E2 visa, the requirements of the E2 visa, the application procedure, where to apply, what to put in the file, how long it takes. This is a completely different subject and it could be another video. Where to file this application in another video. So I hope this information is helpful. If you have any questions about the E2 visa, please send it down on the comment section. Please like the video, please subscribe to the channel and open the notifications. I'll see you at the next video. Take care.